Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast about what comedy means to comedians. Each episode we unpack the highs, the lows, the questionable career choices, and the tiny moments that made comedy feel worth it. Some guests found confidence, some found community, and some just got one laugh 10 years ago and have been chasing that feeling ever since. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 2,000 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is an award-winning stand-up comedian, writer, and actor whose comedy combines sharp self-awareness with brilliantly understated storytelling. A Leicester Mercury Comedian of the Year winner and a BBC New Comedy Award finalist, they have become a familiar voice across UK comedy through acclaimed solo shows, writing for television, and appearances on Comedy Central, BBC Radio 4, and Date. It's comedian Richard Stott. What's your earliest memory of comedy being influential on you? Was it like a big thing when you were growing up?
So I remember being about 13, and my parents would watch the stand-up on Comedy Central because they used to put the Comedy Store and Jongleurs on the Comedy Central channel like every night. And I used to watch that. And sometimes it'd be on later, and every so often I would sneak into the living room to kind of, watch it, stay up late basically and watch it, and then go to school and basically just repeat everything that I'd seen. That's sort of my first memory of it, of seeing it as a sort of genre and an art form, basically. I remember, this is it. I was really, really young. Do you remember when Harry Hill used to have the Harry Hill show?
Yes, yeah.
And I adored that when I was a kid because it was just mad, wasn't it? And it was wacky, and there was all these characters, and I could never understand why it was on. I was, saying to my mum and dad, like, why is this on so late at night? Just assuming it was a kids show because it was just so insane. I think there was one Christmas, I was probably only about 7 or 8, was one Christmas where it was the whole, what does he want for Christmas? Oh, he likes the Harry Hill show. And my grandma went and got me a Harry Hill VHS. But it wasn't the Harry Hill show. It was it was Harry Hill's stand-up. Yeah. And I don't know what was going on. I didn't understand it at all, but I think that VHS is still knocking around. It was really, really cool, like case. It was like Harry Hill in a bunch of like clouds, and you kind of like pulled the VHS out of it, and that was probably the first time I actually sat down and watched a stand-up set on stage as an 8-year-old and just went, well, this isn't very good. Because I was 8. No, you don't realize how clever Harry's comedy is. It's not all slapstick. It's so clever and layered. And yeah.
But how did you go from that then to finding your own path into doing comedy? It wasn't something that you studied?
No, not at all. I originally went to drama school, so I've always been a performer.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hear that from a comedian that they went to drama school.
Interestingly, that's what most comedians say.
This is it. I've come to realize this though, but it's the thing, isn't it? Like audiences don't want their comedian to have gone to drama school. They don't want their comedian to have had an ambition in the dramatic arts at any point. If they had it their way, all comedians would just work in IT and have randomly shown up to a comedy show and had a go and been brilliant at it. That's what everybody wants. And I wish I was that, but no, I went to drama school and I thought I was going to be an actor and ended up getting into production. Way back in 2011, I ended up producing the Manchester Comedy Festival, which was headed up by the Comedy Store. It doesn't exist anymore. But I was very, very new, very, very green, sort of becoming I was a venue manager for this venue that I picked out, and they helped me book it. And I didn't know, the kind of level that I was managing to get, but like the lineup was like Larry Dean, Marcel Leconte, Scott Agnew, Dana Alexander. There was some really huge names that came through. Tom Tuck came through at one point. And I was completely new to the world. And what I loved about it is we just do these late night shows. Everyone would do their own thing, and then we do these late night shows and invite everybody from the other venues to come around. And it was sort of kind of bewildered audience at the front as these comedians tried new stuff.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of comedians pissing themselves laughing at the back. And then I think that's what I was like, this is what I like doing.
Yeah.
I like being with the comedians at the back, laughing at, oh my God, they're trying that bit that doesn't work and the audience aren't going to understand it. And that I love that. And I didn't actually take up doing comedy until 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't occur to me at the time to actually ever try it.
Right.
I tried it because I started writing what I thought was going to be a very serious one-man show about my life. And the more I read it and practiced it, the more it was lending itself to stand-up to me. And I don't think I realized how much of sort of stand-up I'd taken in over the years, just by osmosis, by just watching it, been really, really loving it.
Yeah.
Then when it came to having my first ever go at it, I fared quite well because I wasn't great, but I knew how to not be terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd seen enough of it that I knew what would work and what wouldn't, and very, very slowly started building to something that could be considered good. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about material that would go into your 2019 debut hour, Right Hand Man.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first show that I did was actually called Wretched.
Yes.
And that was I always saw that as more of a piece of theatre.
Right.
You know, there was a lot more sort of acting out. There was a lot more sort of, it was. But technically, that was my debut. Yeah. Because I did a 50-minute spot after 3 months of doing comedy, by the way. And I did a full run at the Fringe. But people would sit through it, and that was enough. And, you know, but yeah, my debut, really what I class as my debut, was 2019, and that went brilliantly. And again, I still think I probably debuted too early. I was still too early. When I look back at that show, it's a very, very new comedian on stage.
Right.
There's 3 jokes out of that show that I still do now, but it got well reviewed. It got in some lists. There was some momentum about me that was, you know, I was like, I arrived that year. It was good. Yeah.
I mean, like you say, it got well reviewed. It's generally considered to be I think this term breakout show has been used.
Yeah, it was. What was really annoying is it was absolutely a breakout show, and then the pandemic happened, and I was naive to think, oh, don't worry, that momentum will just pick up again. And then I came out of the pandemic, and I wasn't the hot new sexy thing anymore, and I'm now I'm basically a stalwart of the comedy circuit. Yeah.
So what do you do when that happens? When you're on the cusp of greatness, you get all that great feedback in August, and then in March the following year, everything just shuts down and there is no comedy. How do you respond to that?
Well, I did the wrong thing. I did nothing. I sat there thinking, this will blow over. This will blow over. It'll be all right. I mean, I say I did nothing. I had a tour booked. So we managed to get some funding from the Arts Council to turn that into an online show. So that became a focus of turning my debut hour into a show that's made for basically people to watch on Zoom. And there was a brief, lovely little moment where we were allowed to go out again, and I managed to film my stand-up hour with Next Up Comedy in person with an audience of 20 people, and then the next day we got shut down again. So that's the main thing that I did with that lockdown thing. But I didn't go big online. I didn't kind of lean into that. I didn't adapt enough. I think I was still hoping it would just end sooner than it would, I think. And I got to say, I hated the Zoom shows. I really did. It was so weird, just performing to a camera, and I would turn the sound off as well, because when people heckled you on Zoom, and they would heckle you on Zoom, they were as amplified as you. So it really, really threw everything. Like when you get a heckle in a room, at least you've got something that's more powerful than them. And then there's a couple of shows where the moderators, inexperienced, were all still working it out. They didn't mute the audience, and then people just worked out that they could talk to us. I remember one where there was a guy who clearly got bored, and he just started watching Take Me Out on his TV, and we could hear. We were trying to do our sets, and we could just hear like Paddy McGuinness go, "No likey, no lighty."
So, having got into comedy then, what was it about performing live comedy that surprised you, that you didn't expect? What was different about the reality of doing stand-up than what you thought it was going to be?
So it's really weird. The first time I did stand-up, the first time I actually went and did it, as soon as I started doing it, I knew that this was for me. And I'd done lots of acting on stage with and film and everything like that, and I've been on at the Globe, and I've been on at big places and stuff like that, and it was always good. It was always fun, but then nothing really felt like this. And it was maybe that sort of adrenaline white knuckle aspect of it. Is you're going on stage, you've written it, it is you. And if people don't like it, there is nothing to hide behind, and there isn't any other one. There's no other actors or performers on stage that are going to pull you out of it. You've got to do this yourself. That's that element of it. The other element of it is you don't have to deal with actors. And I know that is hypocritical coming from me, but you just have to deal with yourself. Yes, you've got to deal with other comedians and green rooms or whatever, but at the end of the day, you can turn up with your backpack and your notepad in the back of it, and what you've got to do in your head, and you just rely on yourself to do that. I find it a lot more accessible. Whereas in theatre, it's even to get anything going on at like a fringe level in pubs and stuff like that. My God, you've got to get 5 people to meet up at the same time, multiple times, to rehearse something, and then book out a theatre for a week, take all that time off work if you need to, and then just maybe a casting director might come. Like, loads of effort. Comedy, you can get on stage 4 times a week. But
the flip side of that, of course, is that you don't have a regular group of people around you. You are very much out there on your own. You have a couple of other comedians, but some of those comedians you might not see for a year or two before they come around again on the same bill. So you wouldn't see it as isolating or insular in that respect.
I think it can be, certainly. And I think you've just got to find your people, I guess. And you've got to have a life outside this. If you haven't got a life outside comedy, then it will be quite isolating, because as comedians and acts and stuff like that, we are friends with each other and stuff like that, but we rarely sort of arrange to actually meet up, because we're safe in the knowledge that we'll bump into each other 2 or 3 times this year at some point, and we'll see each other at the Fringe. So I guess it can be a little isolating. I've never struggled with that too much, to be honest. I've always been, pretty happy with my own company, going to and from gigs and stuff like that. I mean, the other thing is you don't get trapped with people that you don't like as well.
What about the person that you are then on stage? It is you in your own company. Are you on stage the same person you are off stage? How much is it a character of you, an exaggeration of you?
So the more I get into comedy, the more I realise it's a version of me on stage.
Mm.
It's not me at home. Um, what comedy allows me to do is bring out elements of me and accentuate parts of my personality
Mm.
that wouldn't be socially acceptable in a normal setting. I find a lot of my comedy is it's holding on to those little moments, those little thoughts that happen in your head, which most people just let kind of pass by. It's like these intrusive thoughts. But a lot of my comedy nowadays is coming on from, oh, hang on a minute, hold on to that. That was really funny.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sort of relatable because other people would have gone through those thought processes as well. And I think there's a lot of comedy out there like that.
Yeah.
And then in terms of me on stage, I'm much bigger in terms of the way I kind of perform this. And if something's frustrating me, I'll really show that it's frustrating me. There's no sort of there's no filter when I'm on stage. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that sounds a little bit like, anti-woke comedy, right wing, no filter. That's not me. Like I'm not. I just don't. I just don't filter my own sort of emotional vulnerability. That's where it allows me to go.
Yeah, but when you're talking about themes that are specifically personal to you, how do you find that universal appeal? How do you make personal themes relatable?
Yeah. It can be worrying to like go through your show and you just like, this is a bit me. And nobody wants someone who just is navel gazing the entire time on stage. And I think you've got to really trust in finding your audience as a comedian and not cater to what you think a sort of mass audience would want to be. Like there is a difference to what I'm going to do like a club night to what I'm going to do in an Edinburgh Fringe show. Like the set pieces and the club material might be the same, but the way that I'm sort of telling that story, and I at the Fringe, I hope I've captured the right audience that finds what I'm talking about is sort of relatable to them, so I can be as sort of introspective as I want, and they can bring it to them. And then there's just writing techniques, always just like kind of bringing out the analogy, talking about bringing it out to them constantly. You've always got to make sure you're bringing it out to them. But again, it's something I'm still learning to do.
A big running theme, obviously, it is personal to you, is your Poland syndrome. How do you talk about something like that without making that your defining feature, for example?
I think in my debut, it kind of was my defining feature.
Sure.
Certainly. I think it was one of those autobiographical, here's the hook, here's where we're going to go with this. Obviously you don't want to be defined by that. I started doing comedy, making kind of jokes about my condition and really loved doing it. But obviously, there's more to you than that. The way I see it is, I'm not a disabled comedian. I'm a comedian who happens to have a disability. And as a comedian who happens to have a disability, I'm always going to talk about the perspective of life from the lens that I've got. And if disability crops up in that, which it sometimes does, that's what I'm going to talk about. So I've never really had an issue, but there has been sort of comments like, oh, when are you going to talk about something else? Or are you worried that you're going to get pigeonholed as this? And I don't know. It's weird. You wouldn't ask that question of someone that didn't have some sort of diversity about them. Like if someone is going up on stage and they're making comedy. Let's say someone's going up and they're a comedian and they're South Asian and they talk about their South Asian heritage and then they talk about other parts of their life and stuff like that. And they often get like questions of like, oh, you're just kind of like leaning into that. When are you going to talk about something that isn't related to being South Asian or something like that. Nobody goes up to the kind of straight white male comedian and says, "When are you going to stop talking about being a straight white male?" You know, it's a sort of tricky grey area, and I think it's probably, I don't think there's any malice in the way that people are approaching it when they ask those questions, or I think it's just the way the industry's been for a long time.
Right.
And if you talk about something aside from the mainstream, you sort of get put in this box as sort of one of the diversity hires in some people's minds.
Well, let's talk about Fringe a bit, because it's come up a couple of times. Mm-hmm. So what's been then your overall Fringe experience? Because you've been back time and time again with shows, and we're going to talk a little bit about your upcoming show. Mm-hmm. How has your experience been of Fringe over those years?
My best experience is on the Free Fringe. Mm-hmm. That was my best experience thus far. And that was also when I went up with a show that I basically didn't really write. I just sort of got some ideas that I wanted to talk about, and there was some set club material that I thought would string it together. But the whole thing was an idea of, what will this look like at the end of the month, and we'll sort of change it every day. And I never really went up there with a big sort of intention of making any waves of that. And it ended up being my favorite show. It was selling out. It was loads of people in. It got really well received. Ended up in some of the papers with joke listings. It got shortlisted for an Amuse Moose. I was like, well, this is, that's been wonderful, because experiences before that, my debut was good. I didn't enjoy it as much as that one. And then the one that I really, really struggled with was my 2022 show, After Party, which was still a good show, but I wasn't enjoying it myself.
Right.
And I think my 2022 show was an example of when I really tried to follow the Fringe formula to write for what I thought the industry wanted. And it was all sort of there, and I performed it well, and it was good. But I never really enjoyed it, because I knew that I was just sort of crowbarring material in, not because I liked it, but because I thought that's what would get reviewed well or looked well upon in terms of awards. And it didn't anyway. So it just taught me that, I just need to kind of do what I enjoy, and don't write for the expectations of what you think the industry want.
Yeah. Your show this year, Streets Won't Forget, what do you anticipate for that? How are you feeling about the upcoming Fringe?
I'm feeling really good about it. I'm at Hoots, which I think is a brilliant venue. I'm just in a shipping container, 37 seats or something like that. Pressure's off, So it means if 10 people come, it'll feel fairly full. And I'm really, really excited about this show. It's going to be the first time I've come back to the Fringe since 2022 with a show that I've actually written, with a show that I actually think has got a narrative arc going through it. And it is, it's all about something completely new.
Yeah.
It's awful when you start picking apart the themes of what Fringe shows are about, because they start to sound like, I don't know, they start to sound like depressing documentaries or something, don't they? But the show in itself, the title comes from, it's a description given to footballers who, they were pretty inconsistent, but then every so often they would score a world-class goal. And I've always loved those type of footballers. And actually, when I used to play football in school, I was one of those sort of players when I was a kid. And I loved it. I actually loved it, because I could tell the teachers, the coaches and stuff like that were frustrated with me, because and I remember I played for a really rubbish team. We got beat 17-0 once, but I always remember I was always put on as a sub just to see what had happened. And I remember the coach saying to the team, "We put Richard on in the last 20 minutes, right? because he is a danger, because nobody knows what he's going to do, least of all him. And basically, I've semi-linked that to what I feel I am as a comedian at this current state. In terms of, I haven't hit the big time, but people will talk about me in pubs at the moment. And, but the sense of the whole show is sort of about like our collective need to sort of belong to something, how society is at the moment quite fractured, and we're finding it quite hard to get that sense of belonging and community. But then also in exploring my own, frankly, childish need to be liked and get acceptance at 38 still, I went on this journey of discovering why I feel that way, and ended up finding acceptance at the end of it. Yeah. So like I said, that sounds like a Radio 4 piece now, but all comedy shows do when you pull them apart like that.
How important is improvisation? Like you say, you have this written show.
Yeah.
You know, you've prepared your script, you've thought about your jokes, you've got everything set up, but then you have to be in the room when you're a performer. So how important is being able to duck out of what you've prepared and improvise and interact if needs be in what's going on in the room?
Yeah, really important at all times. It's the other thing why I like stand-up. Look, I like being on stage as a stand-up more than I like being on stage as an actor, because as an actor, if something happens in the room, you can't acknowledge it. And as a stand-up, you can. And you've got that freedom to... I think once something happens, something that needs to be acknowledged happens, you're the person that acknowledges it. You acknowledge it, and the audience, we acknowledge it as well, and we just, we can forget that. We can move on. But I would say that I'm not rigid with my stand-up scripts. In fact, I don't really have a script. I've got bullet points and ideas and notes, and I know what order they're going to come in. I always say, treat your stand-up script as a climbing frame. But it's a climbing frame that you can jump off and go on other attractions for a little bit, but you always come back to it. I mean, when I'm on stage, I feel exhausted after I come up, and I think there's a lot of sort of free. It's because your brain is working on the improvisation the whole time. If you need to address anything, so even if you don't do it, your brain is still in that mode. When I'm performing stand-up, there's a bunch of things going on. I'm remembering where I'm going. I'm getting my timing right. I'm listening to the audience and going, right, they didn't like that bit that much, so we won't do the topper. But they did like that bit, so there's a bit coming up in 5 minutes that I can add something to because they seem to like that. Right. And you, at the same time, you're making it look like none of that's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why you see a lot of stand-ups come off stage and they're basically sweating even though they haven't moved around very much. It's the most focused I've ever been in my life when I'm still on stage.
And, you know, like comedians say, it is a job of work. It's not, you make it look easy, but it's hard work. So how do you keep it fun? You know, like you're saying that this is something that you realize it was actually the thing that you wanted to do. But how do you keep it entertaining for you? How do you keep it less like hard work and more like enjoyable work?
I honestly, it's always enjoyable to me. It is hard to sit down and write sometimes. And I'm getting better at putting myself in that headspace where, you know, the difference between me as a professional and me as a semi-pro amateur is I've had to learn that there's some days where a couple of years back I would go, my mind's not in the headspace to write. I can't do it today. There's too much going on. I can't write. And now I have to start going, no, you have to sit there and you have to create. You've got to do something. Like even if you don't manage it, you've got to sit down and you've got to try. That's the hardest bit. Going on stage is obviously the end product, and I've never had a problem with that. It's always good. And I even enjoy bombing now. I like it's even fine not having a good set, because you can tell within the first couple of minutes if it's not going well, and then there's loads of stuff you can pull out of the bag with the audience to like acknowledge that, and they love it when you acknowledge that you're having a bad time. And I've never lost that sort of excitement and pleasure of actually just performing.
Yeah. What about your competitive side? I know you've done a bunch of competitions, and obviously the competition for attention at the Fringe is huge.
Yeah.
Do you have a competitive streak? Is competition important? And you said about in the show you wrote specifically for attention of critics and like awards and things like that. Are awards important to you? Are competitions important?
I'd be a liar if I said that it didn't bother me. Obviously, I'm going to the Fringe, and the reason I'm going to the reason people can't really go to the Fringe just to have fun anymore, which is sad.
Yeah,
it costs so much that you've got to go up with a reason, and my reason this year is to just plant my flag on the circuit and say I'm still here. And if I get some, I'm looking to get some nice reviews because I haven't been reviewed for a very long time. And yeah, that is the sort of business side of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if the Fringe was still cheap, people could go up and just go and have fun. But now you look at the costs and you go, well, I could go to Mexico and that's probably even more fun. So everybody sort of has to go up with a reason and a purpose. I've never won anything. I've never won anything in my life, and I don't expect to. I was really, really happy that I ended up in the finals of the UK Pun Championships. And I'm not even I can write a good pun, but I hate performing them. I just don't. It's just not my thing. And every time I even try and put these puns in my show, which like if you write them down, you watch, they'll be in the lists at some point this year because they're good, but I can't perform them. I really love just being in the final of that. And for your listeners, it's sort of like a knockout competition, and there's 6 people and you face each other off in a boxing ring and you do a pun each, keep going, and then the audience decide who's won that round. And I progressed into the next round, and I was like, that felt amazing because I never, even just nearly getting to the final of the final, that felt amazing. But that was a wonderful night. It was everybody's jokes it was 1,000 people there. There was people getting roars of approval. It was really fun. Yeah.
What about you then as an audience member? Are you a good audience member? Can you watch comedy, or are you like analytical? Do you dissect what you're seeing in front of you, or can you sit back and let the laughs wash over you?
I'm getting a lot better than I used to be. I used to, I don't know. Maybe it's because when you're starting out on the open mics, the etiquette is you stay to the end. So you're watching loads of comedy when you're out on the open mic, and it can be helpful. But now the gigs that I'm doing, it's not like that. You turn up, you do your bit. You can stick around if you want to. If there's someone on that I like I'm interested in seeing their set, I will do. And I think just through the sheer volume, and I've now got the ability to go and choose the comedy that I'm going to watch, rather than going to do 5 minutes on open mic and having to watch 3 hours of other people's comedy. I'm now starting to enjoy watching comedy a lot more. Yeah.
Did you find that there was a point at which, talking about that open mic circuit, there was a point at which you decided to call yourself a comedian? Did you kind of realize that you were a comedian, or do you just say from day one, I'm a comedian now and I'm going to go do my first gig?
Weird, isn't it? Because I used to say, I didn't used to say I'm a comedian. I used to say I'm doing comedy. Do you know what I mean? And I was lucky that I actually didn't do the open mic circuit for that long. Lucky and unlucky in a way, right? I got picked up quite quickly by a really brilliant agent who really liked my sort of story and everything like that, and what I was doing. And they were immediately like, we're going to go and debut this at the Fringe, and it's going to be a big, we'll get some Arts Council funding. And it was amazing. But in that happening so quickly, I sort of skipped those steps, and I didn't discover what my voice was. I just started working at the kind of hooks that would work for me commercially.
Right.
And it's taken a little while for me to sort of rid myself of that and start just, because I would go to gigs after I debuted, and I'd be on the lineup with people who've been going for so long, and I would feel really out of place, big imposter syndrome. And basically for about 2 years, I didn't do any new material, because all the gigs that I was going to, I was like, I have to prove my worth. I have to smash this. I have to, make sure that this is absolutely right. And I think my sort of writing, my instincts and my kind of individualism sort of suffered because of that. So, I mean, since the pandemic happened, and it kind of torpedoed a lot of that, and I was still into that after that. And then my agent actually closed its doors for whatever reason. I've now started discovering a lot more about what I bring to the table as a comedian. And I think this new show is going to be very, very different from what people have seen in the past from me.
But do you set yourself like objectives? Do you have a target list or a vision board, if you will, of like places you want to perform, people you want to work with, or like a 5-year, 10-year thing?
God, no. I'm way more relaxed than that. I'm just happy to be there a lot of the time. I mean, there's some clubs that I want to go. The thing is, I did the whole I'm going to set myself a 2-year plan, and the whole thing just fell apart within 6 months. So I think I've just got to take this where it goes. Comedy will decide what it does with you. As long as you just keep working positively and doing good work, you'll find your own way in this. And I have to admit, I'm not someone who's like relentlessly chasing this down. I've got a rich, full life outside of comedy, and I love doing comedy. But I would still be happy to do comedy if I'm just turning up doing good gigs. If I don't hit like the panel show circuit, or I'm not making all of my money from comedy, it's not a failure. I don't feel that way.
Yeah. Well, on the back of that, then, what do you think have been the best and worst single moments you've had through being a comedian, through doing comedy?
The hardest show that I ever did was in Edinburgh in 2022. And it was just one of those shows where I had an audience, but they just weren't my audience. And as soon as I walked out, I knew that they weren't going to find anything I did funny. And we went with it, tried it, and nothing was working. Like all these nailed on jokes that would usually work, they weren't working. They probably sensed a bit of panic in me, to be honest. But every time I tried a joke, I would do a joke, I'd leave that little gap of silence for laughter. Nothing would happen. And then a woman on the second row would go, "Oh." We just did that for an hour. That was... Yeah. Gosh. And then I think my best moment in comedy, I mean, it's hard to pin down these best moments, but like recently it was just one of those things where everything had bloody aligned, and I've been trying to get on at Top Secret for absolutely ages. And I got a text of like, can you just be here at 7? We'll give you a set at Top Secret. And I went, brilliant. And then my fiance happened to be nearby as well. She was finishing up work. I was like, get down to Top Secret. I'm going on last. It's gonna be my first one that was absolutely packed out. And it was the one time it was the one time in a long time that I literally stood there in the green room and I went over my 10-minute set, which is so tried and tested. But I went over it and I'm like, I am going to nail every single joke on this, every single thing. I'm not going to take anything for granted. I'm going to lock in like I did when I passed my driving test, and I'm gonna pass. I'm going to do this. And it just went berserk from the word go. And I had such a good set. And it was such a sense of achievement walking off that stage, going, right, you've done the ideal set of Top Secret now.
Yeah. Do you think then there's a single lesson that you've learned over these years so far, something that informs your philosophy, if you like?
So it's slightly a little bit back to what we were talking about in terms of competitiveness. But comparison anxiety will just drive you to madness. Just don't compare yourself to people. They're on a different track. I've lost that mental game a couple of times, and there's just no point in getting involved in it. Why some people get attention from the industry at some points in their career, we don't know. It's just the way things go. And so what was hard for me to deal with was, sort of having that moment where I was on Comedy Central and I was on stand-up sketch show and I was doing big shows, and then seeing that sort of calm down, and I think there was a panic from me at a time to try and keep that going. But I think for me, it's like, remember that this could be a career of small peaks, and don't drive yourself mad by doing that. You're always a better comedian than you were. And, if Comedy Central Live came calling again, I've got a much better set to bring to them. So don't fall into that panic. This is a slow process, and don't compare yourself to anybody. Just be happy for them.
Yeah.
Be happy for your peers when something goes right for them. That's it.
Yeah. Well, by that token, are there people who you work with or that that continue to keep you inspired? People whose attitude or material or ideas or thoughts or influence help to push you forward?
I don't think there's anyone individually. Just like there's people you meet on the circuit who, they're just effortlessly sort of positive all the time. And Stefan Allen.
Oh yeah.
What a lovely, positive character.
Completely.
At all times.
Yeah.
All times. Just wonderful. And a brilliant comedian as well, by the way. And,
yes.
I can get a little bit down and I can get complainy and moany and something like that. And just seeing more people like Stefan on the circuit, it just puts you back in your seat and you go, yeah, this is supposed to be about having fun.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be, this isn't supposed to be grueling hard work. If it was, we'd all be off doing something that made us a lot more money. Yeah.
You said about loving the performance side of it, about being on stage. Maybe you are a performer who writes rather than the other way around. But where are you, do you think, at your absolute happiest? What's your comfort zone? Where do you find yourself? A Zen-like mindset? Is it within doing live stage? Is it organizing gigs? Is it like emceeing, for example? Is it in some other form, doing those TV spots that you mentioned, like the stand-up sketch show, Comedy Central Live, those sorts of things? Where are you at your happiest?
I'm happiest in a full room of about 60 to 80 people, where I'm doing 20 minutes and I've got a bunch of comedians that I know, all sort of watching, knowing that we're all going to go for a couple of pints at the end of it. That's where I'm happiest. And then outside of comedy, it would just be in front of my stove, in front of my cooker, in front of my barbecue. That's the only other place that I focus. Yeah.
So how can people find out all about you and where they can come and see you performing?
So I basically only use Instagram now. And that's it's a little tip for anyone out there: is don't spread yourself too thin on social media. Actually, just use one channel. It's my idea. I do study digital marketing as well, by the way. But yeah, find me on Instagram at the R Stott, or just search Richard Stott. I should be the first one that comes up. Got nearly 12,000 followers now, so I should be the first one that comes up. I post everything on there constantly. I'm always putting things on my Linktree. I've got. I'm going to start doing some previews in my living room. Invite only, to be honest, but yeah. And then I will be at the Fringe at Hoots, Nicholson Square at 7:55 every single day.
So my last question, of course, is always the same. It is the title of the show, in fact. So, Richard, how would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Why didn't I look at this before? Comedy in a nutshell. So, comedy in a nutshell. Comedy for me in a nutshell would be a place where people really are allowed to go and have free expression. Whether that expression is valid or not. It's part of the art scene that is unpolished, and it's very, very raw. And just to hear the inner workings of so many different people's minds, it really, I think, is the most honest reflection of the human condition that we've got.
Richard, thank you so much for being my guest. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.